This is how I helped my patient, who is a CEO of 3 different companies, help eliminate his focus issues. This is exactly how I did it. And so the first thing was definitely looking at testing to understand why was he having all these different focus issues. He was also completely burnt out trying to run 3 different businesses as a CEO. And the first thing that I saw was looking at and testing for his cortisol levels, which you could see here, obviously from this graph, that you can see that it definitely was really low, very like early evening. And that's when he was experiencing his focus kind of dipping and he couldn't be consistent. His energy was way off. And that has to do a lot with the adrenals. The adrenals is what releases cortisol. And that has to do with everything as far as when it comes to your energy and your focus. And so the thing that I had to do is support what was going on here. And mainly that was adding something called adrenal desiccated. And adrenal desiccated is something that does help a lot with improving the cortisol levels, especially when it does dip. Now, the next thing that I also need to look at was, okay, if he's also dealing with cortisol, what are some other possible hormones? And one of them was dealing with his DHEA. Now, DHEA does help build and make other different hormones, such as things like testosterone, as well as estradiol. So it's definitely an early sign that can contribute to someone's focus issues when we start seeing this creep up. And so I did 25 milligrams a day with him of doing DHEA. So then the other thing was also to look at other possible things that could be contributing to his focus issues. And that was looking at different amino acids that might be contributing to something like his dopamine being off. So when I was testing for this, notice that his dopamine levels were low. But not only was that, his phenylethylamine levels were low, which is something that is used as an excitatory neurotransmitter that helps make dopamine. So both of them definitely need to be addressed. So there's 2 things that I needed to address with this and have him take. One was taking DL-phenylalanine and taking something called Dopa Boost, which Dopa Boost has a couple things that are important. It has L-Dopa, which also does directly help make dopamine. It also has tyrosine in it. It also has N-acetyltyrosine, which then also does help make dopamine. So there's a few things that I wanted to use there. It also has green tea extract. It also has the activated form of vitamin B6, which is P5P, which is an important cofactor for also making dopamine as well. So all these things were absolutely necessary, but there were still a few things that had to be addressed to eliminate his focus issues as a busy CEO. And that was also looking at his stress levels, because stress can definitely impact this drastically when it comes to focus. And you could see here his norepinephrine and his epinephrine levels were low, and that helps you manage stress. So one of the big things that I had to use here was L-theanine and also using rhodiola. Both of these are great for helping with both epinephrine and also norepinephrine. And so that did help him calm him down more so he wasn't so stressed, and that did help a lot with his focus. But on top of that, I also wanted to see if there were some other issues with other different neurotransmitters. And sure enough, his serotonin levels were low, as you can see right here. Also, the breakdown of serotonin. And so when that happens, this can not only impact your mood, which, he was having some lack of motivation sometimes, and that definitely impacts your focus. But on top of that, he was suffering with sleep issues, and that was a big culprit to his focus issues as well. And so with this, I incorporated 5-HTP, which is a supplement that directly does help build and make serotonin. And so that made all the difference to help not only improve his sleep, but also his mood and to feel clear-minded so that he could focus throughout the day. Now, another thing that also was important and I also tested for was looking at also his GABA levels. As you can see, his GABA levels were low. Now, GABA is something that does impact someone's mood, especially when it comes to anxiety. If it's low, you're going to feel a lot more stress and anxiety, and that definitely is going to impact your focus. So there's also 2 things that I incorporated here. One was just supplementing GABA directly. GABA can help improve those levels, but also incorporating L-theanine like I was before, because L-theanine does help improve increasing GABA levels as well. And so this put him in a more relaxed, calm state, which definitely did help him calm down and be more focused throughout the day. And then there was a few other things that need to be addressed, is looking at the foods that he was consuming and also digestively of what also could be impacting his focus, and certainly there was. And one of them was looking at his blood sugar levels. He had 139 milligrams per deciliter, which is really, really high for someone that isn't per se diabetic. And he was definitely very close to that, because being diabetic, if you have consistent 126 or above, that can lead you into being diabetic. And this was taken after 2 to 3 hours after eating is when I had him do that. So it definitely, he did some other readings where it wasn't as high as 126, but they would dip and they would spike up and down. Now, let me explain why this is important when it comes to focus. Because when it comes to focus, we have to understand that there is things that can impact our energy throughout the day as well as our focus, and blood sugar being one of them. And so if your blood sugar is up and down like this individual was, your energy and focus is going to be up and down consistently. So the thing that I had to incorporate here to eliminate this was called blood sugar support. And blood sugar support has a few other key ingredients, and that's what helped really stabilize his blood sugar, and that did help his focus throughout the day. Another thing is also the digestion. So if you are not breaking down your foods properly, it makes it very difficult to feeding the body and the brain. And that was his case here, because we were testing his stomach acidity. We do this through urine to kind of see, okay, how much stomach acidity is going on there. And he had a 5.3 pH level. And I like to see this between 6.0 to 6.4. So he's definitely running a lot more acidic. And so things that I had to incorporate was magnesium oxide, which is an alkalizing type of magnesium. It's good to kind of bring this down. I also added other alkalizing foods to incorporate that, as well as something called organically bound minerals, which also is a great alkalizer. I also noticed that, he wasn't digesting foods very well. So we also incorporated pancreatic enzymes and also probiotics, because he had a history of taking antibiotics like 6 months ago. And so if you've taken any kind of antibiotics in the past 2 years, generally, that's going to destroy the gut, and you do need to replenish it using some probiotics. And why this is important is because a lot of our neurotransmitters are made in the gut. In fact, about 90 to 95% of a lot of our neurotransmitters are made in the gut. And so if the gut's not working properly, you're going to have issues just like this individual did when you saw all these different neurotransmitters that were off with him. Okay. So on top of that, once we kind of established really what were the deficiencies and what were going on here, is now I had a clearer picture of what foods that we need to focus on and incorporate more. And with him, he was in this state, what we call as an anabolic state, where pretty much he tends to build up and he has a hard time breaking down foods. And so we need to incorporate a lot more vegetables into his diet to detoxify a lot of this back up. But incorporating proteins and fats, and then healthy carbs, healthy starches. And so this was kind of the breakdown where 60% of leafy greens and vegetables, and 10% of proteins and fats every day, and about 30% of healthy starches. And then going through this whole experience, he mentioned here a post he just said, it's been a couple months since I started the OMP program, and I can say I feel a big difference. I am calm yet in the moment and focused. When my mind wanders, Dr. Legrand gave me excellent piece of advice on how to turn it around and put it to good use. Legrand has tailored supplements specifically for my needs. After the first week, I felt a difference in my focus. Now, obviously, this is one individual, one patient that got great experience. And it really does come down to looking at you as an individual of what's going to work for you and what labs you need to be doing to understand your biochemistry imbalances, to understand why are you actually suffering with your focus issues. And so you should consider downloading my free entrepreneur lab guide, which goes over all the critical labs that you should be implementing and taking, and so that you can identify more of the root cause of those issues. Even better yet, if you want more of my help, you can book a consultation either with me or with one of my health experts, and you can do that in the description below. And so speaking about all different critical labs, that's really the first step to really helping with your focus issues. And so you should watch this video next, where I talk about all the critical labs that an entrepreneur must get and should get. And so watch this video next.